On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, it's a little heavy at the beginning with the DC shooting subject, but we have to address it. The DPRK prisoner boy returns home. The Alaskan Avenger. And man who hates his wife gets home confinement. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Marky and Freeze, and this is episode 65 of the John1911 Podcast. We haven't said this in a while. Can you believe it's 65, Freeze?
Yeah, I know. It's pretty amazing.
It is outstanding. Look, we don't brag too much, but we're getting some like serious traction with this podcast. I don't know why y'all want to listen to us talk, but it's weird. We get tons of people that listen to us, but we don't really get that many like feedback. We don't get people that want to we don't get a lot of feedback on the iTunes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but I mean, we may not get a lot of feedback, but the numbers are there. So
yeah, I guess people are shy. I guess it's also weird too because we get a lot of emails. People will ask questions or send us emails. Hey, what about this? What about that? Can you guys address this? Can you address that? But they won't. They'll send it in private message or email, but they won't send it in a comment. So
yeah.
That's kind of interesting. So all right, I guess we're running a little late this morning. It's about 9:30. I've had 2 hours of pure hell already, and you sound like you've been up all night working, dealing with bullshit. So
oh man, I'll tell you what. I don't know what the hell was going on yesterday. I mean, last night. It's the middle of the month. It's a Wednesday. It was like shit. You think it would have been a Saturday the 1st. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because first of the month in the ghetto.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like Christ, man. It's like, man, everyone just needs to just chill and.
Yeah.
Put down the pipe and go to bed.
Yeah. Speaking of chill, I actually put a link up to we've addressed this a few times because we've been warning about this. And so this is, it's June 15th. It's 9:30. So 26 and a half hours ago, a lefty communist socialist jackass tried to assassinate the Republican caucus out of Congress at a baseball field yesterday.
Well, anyone who is 65 podcasts into listening to us has heard us predict this. Maybe not this particular incident, but we predicted something like this happening.
Yes. And who was the biggest loser yesterday? Let's play that game. Biggest winners and biggest losers. Who was the biggest loser yesterday? I guarantee you no one heard this name. Well, some people may have heard this name yesterday. That's not entirely fair. But who was the biggest loser yesterday?
Well, probably the guy that got killed. Ultimately.
Nah, that's a win. That put his ass up. Do you know what? Okay, I'm going to go. Do you know what Timothy McVeigh, Osama bin Laden, and the guy who shot up the baseball game yesterday have in common? My tax dollars paid to kill those fuckers, and it makes me happy.
Well, yeah.
So, but anyway, the biggest loser yesterday is Kathy Griffin, because
yeah, you know what? Wow, I never even went there, but shit, yeah, you're right, because Kathy Griffin today
is fucked.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Well, dude, today we were talking about that on the podcast. She holds up the little head of fucking Trump and all that stupid bullshit. And we were saying, it's like, look, Kathy Griffin and goddamn Madonna talking about blowing up the White House and all these people, we predicted that their asses are hanging so far out in the breeze on this subject that they just don't realize. Because look, Madonna, when she talks about blowing up the White House, she says that because she doesn't really think that anyone has a chance to do that. Nobody logically really thinks that, someone is going to successfully hurt or tag Donald Trump. So, but what they don't seem to understand is what we predicted is the story's going to turn not when somebody tags Donald Trump, because that statistically is not likely to happen. The story's going to turn is when, somebody walks into a Trump hotel and guns a bunch of people down and it's associated with Trump, or somebody shows up at the Republican caucus and tries to gun a bunch of goddamn congressmen down. And all of a sudden now, all these people making all these threats, I mean, they're running for cover today.
Oh, yeah. Did you hear, Nancy Pelosi's speech yesterday?
I was busy yesterday in most of the meetings. I have actually not seen a lot of media yesterday.
Well, I mean, I think this might have been the first time Nancy Pelosi actually said President Donald Trump. I think it's the first time she actually acknowledged he's the president. But she gets up there and, our prayers and thoughts go out to everyone, blah, blah, blah. This is horrible. God bless President Donald Trump. I mean, and it was just like, wow. But she's playing politics because she can't get up there the same day this happens and go, Russia obstruction of justice, fuck Trump. I mean, she can't say that. So she has to play nice because, no one really believes Nancy Pelosi, no one takes her seriously because they know she's filled with hate and vinegar.
Okay. Look, I hate to sound jaded and suspect, but, when our regulars know this, but we're growing so fast. I feel like I got to explain a couple things. I'm a conservative. I mean, I would definitely quote caucus with a conservative, but I'm more of like a libertarian who hates Ron Paul. And what I mean by that, I'm not a religious conservative. I'm not a moral conservative. So what I'm about to say, if you're a religious conservative, realize that maybe you may not like everything about me. When I see a report of Democrats at their baseball practice, they get word that there's been a shooting at the Republican practice, and they decide to all gather around and have a little prayer. I got to be honest with you. I'm just like, that is just virtue signaling to me. I don't believe it for a minute. I mean, I'm not saying there's not some Bible thumper religious people on the Democratic side, but we all know this is showboating, because the truth is, let me tell the listener what happened yesterday that's not reported in the news. Okay. The guy that was shot at the GOP baseball game, he is part of the leadership of of Congress. So the senior party in power, they're part of the what's called enduring constitutional governance. Okay. So, everyone knows that President Donald J. Trump is the commander in chief, and everyone knows that Vice President Mike Pence is the spare, the heir, the king and the spare. And then everyone knows that the speaker is, the vice president is the president pro tem of the Senate, and then the speaker is, quote, third in line. And now this can get a little complicated depending on you're into the War Powers Act, or whether you're into succession with, who has, if the president and vice president are dead, does the Secretary of Defense have the ability to, is he now the president or the commander in chief, or Secretary of State? There's immediate command and control, but then there's succession, constitutional succession that happens later. So, to keep the government functioning in the event of a decapitation strike, and this is something our government's been concerned about since the late 40s. And if you follow North Korea and what everybody talks about how we're going to kick North Korea's ass, it's all about decapitation strikes. All of a sudden, when you're nuclear weapons, you're talking about decapitation strikes. Congress, you have to have a legislative, body to kind of keep, we're a constitutional republic. So, the guy that was there, he has his two little security dudes because is he the third in line at the majority party in the House? So what happened was there was an attack yesterday on the leadership of a branch of government. So yesterday, a flash message went out, and all of these sites around the country were put on alert. Like Site R, and like the alternate Pentagon, the alternate White House. When this all happened yesterday, did anyone notice that Nancy Pelosi and Paul Ryan didn't immediately show up in front of a camera? You want to know why? Because the motherfuckers were locked up in a goddamn bunker because they didn't know what the fuck was going on. So now that I've set the stage to explain kind of what happens behind the scenes yesterday, as far as everyone's heard of COG, the continuity of government, but there's more to it, and it's so secret and classified. You've got COG, and then you've got COOP. COG is basically like keeping the president and National Command Authority alive. Someone authorized to shoot the bombs. COOP is continuity of operations, so somebody to keep the departments of the government, the executive branch, functioning after, say, a nuclear strike or an asteroid hits the planet. And then ECG is the plan to keep Congress, a representative Congress, functioning, at some level. So what could have happened yesterday if this guy I will call command staff guy, if this ECG guy hadn't been there with his two little security guards, this gunman could have killed, Senator Rand Paul was there. I don't know how many other Republican senators were there, but Republicans only have control of the Senate by what, 1 or 2 votes?
No, it's more than that, I think, but it's not by much.
It's not by much. And so, but here's the thing, okay? In the Constitution, senators that die can be appointed by governors. Representatives die, they're not appointed. You have to have a special election. And a lot of the way this works is you have... it's 180 days. Sometimes it's 120 or 140 days. It varies state by state by state. I'm just doing all this off the top of my head. So you could have had a situation where a bunch of Republican congressmen were killed. You wonder at how deep down that would have hit into their majority. I think they have a 40-person majority. I doubt that this guy could have killed 40 people, but he could have easily changed the balance of power. Now, I'm swinging back to where we started because people are probably like, geez, Marky's kind of going off into the weeds. I know you are, Freeze, but let me bring this. Let me bring this back home. Okay, so here's the problem. So Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they virtue signal, and they they talk about, let's have a prayer and let's do this. I don't believe a goddamn word of it. First of all.
No, neither do I. And then when I heard it, I thought, whatever. Yeah,
but so then here's the thing. So when it came out that it's their boy, it's from their team, this guy is, part of. What's been going on the left in this country is so out of control, and everybody's known this for a long time, that this was going to start happening because it's been happening. All this violence, okay, and so they're so caught red-handed on this issue. There's not really real talk about. They're not talking about gun control. They're not talking about this is it. This is going to change the conversation. When the Democrats are busted, all of a sudden it's kumbaya, bipartisanship, whatever. If this thing had been flipped, if it had been reversed a different way, okay, we would be having a completely different conversation, which means it's a double standard and it's horseshit. And one more point that I'm going to prove to the people at home how scary this is and how we're all being hustled on this. So let's say 3 Republican senators have been killed. Just hypothetically speaking, or 5 or whatever, some small number, but enough to make a difference. Well, a governor can appoint a replacement senator. Check this out. If a Republican governor was given the choice of replacing a Democratic senator, the political talking heads would all say that he should appoint a Democrat, not a Republican, in the sense of fairness and bipartisanship and whatever. But if it was reversed, if it's a Democratic senator or Democratic governor that has to replace a bunch of Republican senators, it would be fuck you guys, we win, you lose, ha ha, suck my dick. Here's a bunch of goddamn communists in the Senate. We tip the balance. Trump doesn't have a majority, and and so now everything's basically deadlocked.
Yes.
And it's like, this is such a bullshit. I mean, everybody's whistling past the graveyard on all of this horseshit. And then the final point, I'm waiting for this to happen. Okay. So Robert Mueller comes out late last night, and he's like, we're investigating. They leaked this shit. Oh, Donald Trump's being investigated for obstruction of justice. So they want to knock this out of the goddamn news. They decided to leak this. Again, Robert Mueller didn't announce this. It was intentionally leaked. So now, Donald Trump's in trouble, and now we all this stuff. And it's obvious the arguments they're trying to make is, well, why Donald Trump can't fire Robert Mueller. And they're right. They are right. If Donald Trump was a normal president, if Donald Trump was really George W. Bush, he couldn't fire Robert Mueller. If it was President Ted Cruz, he couldn't fire Robert Mueller. But the truth is, Donald Trump plays by a different sheet of music, and everyone knows that this is getting to be crazy bullshit. Mueller is Comey's best buddy. They're hiring all these Clinton Foundation donors to work for Mueller to run these investigations. And I am predicting that Trump, at some point, is going to shut this down. He's going to fire this guy. He's going to shut this whole goddamn thing down.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he needs to. It's really gone way out of control. But
this is related because the Democrats don't want this shooting to turn into an unfair, partisan, violent, dangerous attack on our republic and our democracy and the Republican Party. Because if that story turns, and the Kathy Griffin story turns and washes over the mainstream media, it's going to make it a lot easier to fire Robert Mueller because it's so obviously out of control. The Mueller thing is so out of control already. These are not unrelated issues at all, and this is the fight that's taking place right now in Washington, and nobody's talking about it but us.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
So, answer me this, because you may have seen some of the news. Because, look, first reports are almost always wrong. I got that off my chest. First reports are almost always wrong. You and I were talking yesterday, and I'm like, again, this is off. We're not on air, and I'm like, dude, why is it all Republican congressmen talking to the media? Like, it's like some kind of shooting, something happened, people weren't really sure what was going on, and I'm wondering why it's all Republicans. And I started to wonder, and I was like, is this like a Republican baseball team or something, a Republican deal? But I didn't want to say it because that sounded kind of crazy to me. And then
when we were talking, they didn't know who the shooter was. I mean, this was all going down. There wasn't a lot of information out. But then I started digging into the information. It's like, oh, okay, well, it was the Republican team practice. and and then it's just like, well, I think I think what I said was the Democrats right now are hoping like hell it's some crazy right wing white supremacist nut job NRA member.
That is like turning into the purple squirrel, isn't it?
Yes. but look, in a situation like this, there's only two choices. It's either one of our people or it's one of their people, and you can only hope it's one of their people because you don't want to be stuck holding the short stick. Now, they have a little wiggle room because this guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And,
he worked for the Sanders campaign.
Yeah. And so they can kind of give themselves a little bit of distance, but the Democrats went to bed with Bernie after they gave Hillary the nomination anyway. So, it's one of those deals where, dude, they're just every Democrat woke up this morning hating life. Now, you are hearing a little bit about gun control because not a whole lot, but, of course, anytime something like this happens, it raises its head. But they're trying to kind of deflect everything away. And if they can, so they throw a little bit of gun control out there, hoping that maybe if that gains traction, it'll kind of, they're doing whatever they can to just kind of deflect everything.
Well, let me make this point. I'm waiting for all this to kind of intersect, like 5 point, like Tyson's Corner in Washington, D.C., all the roads cross at Tyson's Corner. When is the media or the news or the American public going to step back and look at the big picture and say to themselves, why has the FBI leadership, the law enforcement leadership of this country, been obsessed with a political witch hunt that is bearing no fruit, has no evidence, and is obviously motivated to build leverage for a political outcome instead of actually busting, investigating, and going after all of these hate groups in this country that are beating people to death or shooting people? I mean, all this happened on Comey's watch. Look at all the shit that's going on with these assholes on Twitter and Facebook. That's the thing. Like it's already come out this morning. Bernie Sanders is getting fucked this morning. Okay, Gabby Gifford. She was the congresswoman that was shot. She's a Democrat from Arizona, off the top of my head. And she was shot by, it's not Lanza. I can't remember his name. So, but he's a lunatic, and he's
a crazy son of a bitch. He had skulls in his backyard.
Well, they were trying to say that he was a right-wing NRA member, and then they discovered, oh, guess what? He's a socialist. I think there was something he was real big into like socialism and all that. Like it was like, oh shit, this isn't gonna work. So they went with the whole he's crazy because he was obsessed with Gabby Gifford. Well, within days, if not hours, after the shooting of Congressman Gifford, or Giffords, whatever her name is, the Bernie Sanders office sent out an email fundraiser, and it was, let's see here, they talked about right-wing reactionaries that are responsible for all this violence, and they were actually trying to say Sarah Palin. They were blaming Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
For the Gabby Gifford. And they were raising
the whole map thing.
And they were raising money off of this. And so now, because you do shit now, and you say things. That's the thing. I say some pretty pushy things on this podcast. And I publish some pretty pushy things, but I don't ever say anything or publish anything that I can't actually defend or I'm not comfortable with, in the future. Look, I can be wrong, but I don't get ahead of the news curve. I don't make mistakes. And a lot of these people the left in particular, the right is much better at this because the right has been getting hammered by this politically correct gotcha game for 40 years. They're really good at playing it. The left, they are not used to being held up to this kind of standard, and they're eating their own. And this is what's constantly happening now, is the quote, chickens are coming home to roost. Mm-hmm. There's that Reverend Wright reference. So, I mean, have you heard about this group that the shooter was involved with? Is it called, I can't remember the name of the group, but it's it's not Kill Republicans, but it's basically some kind of Facebook group that is, basically about killing Republicans or something. This man is a part of this group, and immediately after the shooting came out, people have screen grabbed, the comments, and people are like, "I'm not sad." Actually, one person created a meme based off the whole baseball song, 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out, and all this stuff and then they're it's just terrible what's going on the left in this country. And, the FBI and Comey and all these fucking jackasses doing nothing about it. I mean, we have this growing left violence, organized violence across state lines. There's money paying for all this.
Yeah.
Talk about, this is right in the FBI wheelhouse. Nothing. Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy. You look at go back since the election. You've got your Antifa, your Black Lives Matter. You've got all your little hate Trump groups. Anytime a conservative gives a speech, they basically riot and burn down a Starbucks. And literally no one's doing anything about it. The colleges are okay with it. Everyone's like, well, they got freedom of speech and let them go. Well, now they've escalated it. I heard about a week ago a blurb, and I didn't pay much attention to it, but the Antifa people were talking about arming up, getting guns and learning how to use guns, which I kind of just chuckled it off, and
the John Brown, they're calling themselves the John Brown Militia, JBM.
Yeah, something like that. And after yesterday,
which is funny when you think that John Brown was a extraordinary religious person. He was a reverend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But after yesterday, their organization is pretty much done.
I guess I will see, again, come together, kumbaya, bipartisanship.
Well,
that means It's not done, because if it was really done, they'd all the talking heads would be like, what the hell's going on in the Democratic Party? What the hell's going on the left side of this country? Because they're all crazy.
Yeah. Well, but there's two nails in this Antifa, John Brown, whatever the hell they're calling themselves group. The biggest nail, of course, is, this, what's the guy's name? James Hodgkinson or something like that?
I would not know. I would not know who the leader of that group is.
No. I'm talking about the shooter from yesterday.
You know what? I don't even know his name. Whatever. I mean,
but here's the thing, and this was a news blurb that I heard, I don't know, several days ago, but apparently, there's been a lot of, violence and stuff going on, as usual. And I think this was in Washington State, but there was, and I don't know all the details. Like I said, I see so much news shit on a daily basis, but, One of the Antifa members was exercising his right to open carry. And he was open carrying a handgun, in a holster, open carry, and that's fine. That's legal in the state. Well, what happened is there was, I don't know if the guy had a Trump hat on or a Trump shirt, but, for whatever reason, he was, a Trump supporter. And this guy and like 3 other Antifa guys gave this, we'll just call him a right winger, for the sake of argument, gave him a beatdown.
Now they all armed and they gave him a beatdown?
No, the one guy was armed and he didn't pull his gun. They just gave him an old fashioned beatdown, but it was 4-on-1. Well, here's the thing. The 3 Antifa guys that were not armed, they get, they get arrested and it's assault and whatnot. The 4th guy, the guy that was open carrying, had a real come to Jesus moment because now he's charged with felony assault because apparently Washington State has a law that if you're in a group, I think if it's 2 or 3, or it's either 2 or 3 or more people attacks one person, and you have a weapon on you, then it automatically gets escalated to a felony assault charge. So, whether you use the weapon or not, if you have it on you.
So there is an actual law that is written, it's constructed, that if there's multiple assailants and one of the assailants is in possession of whatever under the definitions of the state as a weapon,
yes,
that there's a even if it's not used, they get a weapon specification on the charge.
Yes, and the guy's looking at.
That sounds like a KKK kind of law. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I like that.
I want to think the guy's looking at like a minimum of like 2.5 years in prison. If found,
2 felonies. Guilty. I mean, if he's got a felony for the assault and they've got some kind of weapon specification on it, they're 2 felonies. Minimum's going to be a year each charge. I mean, minimum. That's pretty much the standard.
So he's like, I'm exercising my right, but you know what? The other guy that's exercising his right, I don't like what he has to say, so I'm going to give him a beat down. Oh, well, you know what? Dude, maybe you should have left your gat at home.
Well, the thing is, look, this is going back to what we were talking about before. There's a lot of weak-minded people out there. They're not smart. They're not sophisticated. Look, I will throw people a bone and say we have it on both sides. That's fair. But here's the thing. You've got, who was it? One of these goddamn Democrats was talking about we need to fight Trump in the streets. They're talking about, Madonna's talking about blowing up the White House. Kathy Griffin's got freaking the boy's head. And all this, whatever, there are weak-minded people out there that are not very sophisticated, and they literally think like this guy yesterday. Okay, let's be real about this dude who shot up the schoolyard. Let's have a semi-sophisticated conversation here. He is somebody who has been either indoctrinated or just grew up believing that rich people are rich because they lie, cheat, and steal, and they take from the poor. He's grown up or indoctrinated into believing that every problem in his life is somebody else's fault. He is believing that he believed, this guy yesterday, the shooter, he believes that while what he may have done is against the law, he is self-righteous, and he believes that the ends justify the means, and then he also looks around and he sees all these people talking about, they want to blow up the White House and all this shit with Trump, and he feels that he is now emboldened that he is representing the left and his buddies, that he literally thinks he's a hero. He literally thinks he's shooting the Republicans. Him shooting the Republicans to him is like gunning down Hitler in 1933.
Yeah, because he's been on record saying that Republicans are racist and sexist, and Donald Trump is a traitor to the country.
Yeah, but
he believes that.
But it's not even Donald Trump. Just he believes this is like a kind of modus operandi of kind of like the radical left. Okay, it's always been this way. It's about everything is everybody else's fault. All your problems are somebody else's fault. It's all about envy, and it's about this twisted sense of justice. And look, there's an immoral. The shooter yesterday, he subscribes to he's like tax the rich and do all this, and Donald Trump is going to get rid of Obamacare, so we're all going to die. So shooting these Republicans is self-defense. Literally, that's that. I mean, I'm not agreeing with him. That's their argument. That is how they literally, the people over at Nancy Pelosi's ball field can sit on their and pray because they feel like that they're justified. Okay.
Do you want to hear two quotes from the guy that he wrote in editorials to newspapers?
I haven't seen the editorials, but I did. He apparently had 2 Facebook pages. As soon as his name was released, I went out and I found his 2 Facebook pages, and I screen grabbed a bunch of the stuff because I knew either it was going to disappear or people were going to put up fake pages. But I don't know. I don't know what the editorials are. Go ahead.
In March of 2010, he wrote, "I don't ever again want to hear how great a president Ronald Reagan was. All he did was give tax breaks to the rich and put the rest of the country, or at least 13.1%, out of work. To think the Republican Party can call this man their idol is un-American." That's one quote. The other quote is, "I have never said life sucks, only the policies of the Republicans."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me add this one. This was really interesting, and this is an example of how this is an example of how, if you are not used to dealing with the media, and the average intelligence about dealing with the media is rising. It's kind of like computers. Grandma and Grandpa really didn't know how to deal with the computers, but now, the kids today, when they're 80, they're going to be pretty savvy as far as computers. Everyone's a little bit more savvy about media than the average person, say, 30 years ago. But they had a guy, they'd stuck a camera in some guy's face. And this guy was a, quote, friend of the shooters. And the friend is basically standing up for his buddy, and he's like, he said a couple things, but one, he was rambling on about all these virtues about this person, and then he said he never backed down from anything. He never backed down from a fight. Never backed down from a bar fight ever. And it's like, okay, let's just step back here. And it's like, this guy, he's like, yeah, he never backed down. This man, the shooter, was 66 goddamn years old. Okay. You're 60 fucking years old getting into bar fights?
Well, apparently his record, he had several arrests for assault over the years.
Any of them within the past 15 or 20 years. You and I know this, dude. There's kind of this, it's not really 18 like shit you do as a minor, shit you do as whatever, but you know as well as I do, there are certain crimes that kind of go with certain age demos. And you know as well as I do that as people age up, they tend to age out of certain behaviors, even if they're dirtbags, and if they don't, that's a real indicator of character. You know what I mean? Like being 65 years old and getting arrested for public intoxication is kind of a clue. It just is an extreme example to prove a point.
Yeah. Well, he also had a DV and a weapons discharge rap on him. So, I mean, the guy.
Well, do you want to hear what the Bernie Sanders fans are saying? You're gonna love this one.
Okay.
Because it gives me a chance to bring up something else. You know the false flag people, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I went to this guy's Facebook pages. He's got two, and I grabbed a bunch of his stuff. And one of the things he had on his page was he had some kind of meme, and I recognized the guy's face. It had on one meme, it had Dick Cheney. I can't remember who the other guy was, and it had the Rothschild guy. Rothschild. You know, when I say Rothschild, that immediately brings up like the Bilderbergers.
The Bilderbergers is exactly what popped into my head.
Yeah, the Zionist occupational government, the New World Order, 1,000 Points of Light, George Bush, all this crazy, the frickin' the
Skull and Bones,
all this shit. So.
Yeah.
So, okay. So this he had this kind of shit posted, like a year ago. So I went over to some of the Bernie Sanders properties on social media because I was like, it literally would take me just 2 seconds. I zapped in this woman. She was a pretty lucid person, but here was her logic, and you really couldn't dispute her logic other than it's on its face, it's like, really? Her logic was, she goes, listen up. Y'all better wake up. She said, hold on, let me find it here. She said that she said that the Clintons and the Republicans, I guess now she now thinks Donald Trump is like an establishment Republican, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Clintons and the Republicans were never down with Bernie Sanders. And she goes, isn't it a coincidence that since the election, two Bernie Sanders supporters who have never had any history with the Bernie Sanders movement have now been implicated in the knife attack, in the guy who was knifing all the people and turns out to be a Bernie Sanders guy, and then this guy who shot up all the people who turns out to be a Bernie Sanders guy, hashtag false flag.
What?
She is making the argument, and all these there's a lot of Bernie Sanders people that are buying into this. Their argument is that the Republicans and the Democrats are conspiring to break up and discredit the Bernie Sanders movement by setting up false flag attacks that are being, quote, perpetrated, unquote, by Bernie Sanders supporters. Her argument is that this guy yesterday was a false flag attack. He's not a real Bernie Sanders supporter. Oh, isn't it convenient? Oh, that they happened to kill him. Oh, isn't it convenient? Oh, he was alive when they took him to the hospital, but he didn't make it. But everybody else did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The guy. So basically, she's insinuating that he was whacked.
Or it was like a setup, or it wasn't real, or and it's like all these things are set up to make the Bernie Sanders people look bad because it's not real. Yeah, this is the Republic. This is Hillary. Literally, it was Hillary Clinton and the Republicans are setting up false flags to try to derail their movement.
So basically, Congressman Scalise was shot by the gunman on the grassy knoll.
Dude, if you make coffee come out of my goddamn nose. Jesus. I mean, I hate to sound so. I'm trying to. It's hard. How do you sound? I'm trying not to sound. I feel bad having a podcast that's been going on for 43 minutes and we're talking about this and it seems negative because I'm not negative. But man, it's just. Holy smokes.
Yeah, well, that's all well and good. They can make that argument if they want, but, it's not going to hold water.
Yeah, so you know what? Let me go ahead. Let me ask you this. Do you have any information? We're going to change gears here because we're going to just talk about a couple more topical things and a couple funny things. Do you have any information on DPRK boy at the hospital?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Other than the fact that I know he was admitted, I have nothing.
Yeah.
Look,
we have contacts at the hospital where the kid who was held prisoner in North Korea, and I guess he's been in a coma for a year. We have some contacts at the hospital that he is at, and I was just curious what the word is. I think probably today his family's going to have a press conference.
They already have. I haven't heard it, but it just came up on my feed that it's happening now. The parents are they're holding a press conference as we speak.
Yeah.
So, but look, okay. It sucks that this kid's in a coma. And I hate to say anything bad about the kid, but honestly, I really, really don't feel bad for the guy. And I really can't, oh, this is so terrible, Korea treat. You know what? Screw this guy. I hate to say it that way. I hate to sound bad, but look, the bulldozer doesn't stop for you in Israel. People that listen to our previous podcast will understand that reference. What makes these college kids think they can go to Korea and steal shit? Look, okay, Antifa members here can burn Donald Trump in effigy. They can rip down his posters. They can spray paint them. But you know what? If you go to Korea and spit on old Kim Dong-un's picture.
Kim Dong. Dude, that's going to make the title Kim Dong.
Okay.
Kim Dong short.
If you deface one of Kim Dong's posters, you're going to get beat into a fucking coma. And look, it wasn't botulism that put him into the coma. He was beat into it.
See, look, the truth is, I don't know that. I mean, that's such a dirty-ass country. Dude, you never know.
I don't know what put him into this coma, but who knows? But look, the truth is, man, look.
Oh, dude, somebody made a really interesting point. I thought it was funny about hostages, and I just want to say this. They said that, Obama gave Iran, I don't know how much money it was to free whatever hostage, some hostage out of Iran. Yeah. And then they said Donald Trump gave North Korea Dennis Rodman winning Make America Great Again.
Yeah, no shit. But look, the truth is, if you decide to go out in the middle of the street and lay on the double yellow line and a fucking bus comes over and runs your ass over, I can't feel sorry for you.
See, people don't know what you're talking about. That used to be a thing. Remember people used to lay down on the double yellow line and videotape it in between traffic? Yeah. You know what we call this? We call this adventure tourism. It's like running with the bulls. This kid wanted to run with the bulls who could tell the story. There's a lot of celebrities. There's a lot of people that go to North Korea. People don't realize it. Like celebrities and people that try to, go in under like a false name so they can just tell stories about how worldly, for whatever reason they want to do. But look, if you're going to run with the bulls, every year a couple people take the horn up the ass. And while I don't want to see people take the horn up the ass, and I'm not rooting for anybody to take the horn up the ass, I'm not going to lay awake at night in a cold sweat feeling terrible about what happened because you chose to go there. And like we have people that are hitting our Facebook page and are like, we should turn North Korea into glass and we should take them out, fucking commies. And it's like, all right, let's be real here. And this is where somebody like Donald Trump is really actually is just as responsible as Hillary Clinton. Is this kid who's in a coma? He went there by himself so he could be cool. He went there with a group, I guess, but he went there on his own decision to be cool. Is that worth 50,000 civilian lives in Seoul, South Korea? And because if we cross that border and we want to take out North Korea, it'll take us at least a few hours, if not 24 hours, to silence all the artillery pieces that will be shooting on the South Korea. And there's supposedly there's 10,000 artillery units, individual artillery pieces within striking range of Seoul, South Korea. You can't. It's like trying to stop a bullet. Once a cannon cockers pull that lanyard, dude, that round is going to land in that city. That's a big ass city. It'd be like shelling Manhattan. Is this kid worth 50,000 people, civilians in Seoul? This I hate to say it, people don't realize this, but you're not. This kid's not worth that. I know he's an American, and I feel bad for him. And Lord knows what the North Koreans did to him. But it's America. And in America, you have the right to be stupid.
Yeah.
We're not going to kill 50,000 people for this.
Speaking of the right to be stupid, while you're talking, Rosie O'Donnell is probably wishing a lot of her Twitter posts will go away, and
dude, they're all hanging out in the breeze on this stuff.
Okay, let me read some Twitter posts from Rosie O'Donnell. Now these are from a month ago. These are from like May, and older. I mean, they're old posts, but once you post to Twitter, it's there forever. Even if you delete it, it's still there forever. So May 16th, she's like, when Trump goes, so does Sessions, and then Gorsuch gets removed, Garland sworn in, every EO executive order invalidated.
Okay. Well, hold on.
No.
Gorsuch gets removed?
Yeah, well, now this is her Twitter post.
There is no mechanism in place to remove.
Well, now let me
unless
finish.
You go through an impeachment.
Now it's my turn to say, let me finish.
All right. You're right. I'm going to drink caffeine.
So someone responds to her Twitter post. It says, but to remove a Supreme Court justice, there's nothing in the Constitution. It literally takes an insurrection. Do you have an army ready? And Rosie's response was, well, no, I do not. We have never had this kind of treasonous madness in power before. Desperate times equals desperate measures.
Like if Rosie really wanted to try to do something, what she should, if she was snap the fingers and make her king, she should try to do what FDR tried to do, was court packing. If our non-historian listeners don't know this, FDR got into a big fight with the Supreme Court over a lot of his socialist, communist, New Deal shit, which was very illegal. A lot of it was. So he was. I don't think does the Constitution specify that the Supreme Court has to be 9 guys or 9 folks? I'm sorry, or because he basically tried to add 2 or 3 more people to the Supreme Court to change the balance of power. That was called court packing. Was his plan? Yeah. I'll bet you there is a legal mechanism possible to remove a Supreme Court justice, just because we have 3 co-equal branches of government, and so it would be just how one branch can check another branch. Well, I don't. You know what? I'm not Alan Dershowitz. That would be so. How does the legislative branch check the judicial branch? Do they check it by doing? Hold on. Do to impeach one, or do they check it by passing a constitutional amendment? That might be the check. There may not be the ability to impeach a justice. You may have to pass a constitutional amendment to basically change the law, which is how they're supposed to check them. If they follow the law, that's why you're supposed to follow the law, Democrats.
Well, telling Democrats they have to follow the laws, kind of.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna throw you, and people that I'm gonna watch the stats and see if people even stuck with us, because a lot of people apparently want to hear what we have to say about politics, but a lot of people also want to hear about guns. Dude, I'm gonna throw you a bone, such a big goddamn bone. You're going to actually, because you're gonna, after you get off the podcast, you're going to go to bed. You're going to go to bed with a smile. You're going to be sleeping with a smile on your face. Everyone knows you hate Glocks.
I do.
You hate them with, quote is, I hate them with a passion.
Yeah.
You recognize them that they're successful and they are what they are, but you don't personally care for them.
No, I don't. I don't personally care for Glocks. I actually hate them as a firearms platform, but I do recognize what they are, and I actually recommend Glocks to people.
Non-gun. That is true.
Non-gun people. Someone say, "Oh man, you know what? I want to buy a gun. What's a good gun to buy?" Tell them, go buy a Glock.
I once told a judge, he was like, "I want to keep a gun." And have it, and he was going to keep it in his chambers. And I knew another judge that had one, literally had the same gun. Gun hadn't been touched in 30 years. It was a revolver, luckily, but it was ooh. I said, well, if you're going to have a gun just to have it, and you want to make sure it works, if it's going to stay there for 10 years or 15 years, get a goddamn Glock.
Yeah, but absolutely. I mean,
But hold on. We don't want to talk about how great Glocks are. This is going to.
Well, I'll never talk about how great Glocks are,
dude. Do you know who the guys are? They call the one guy Gun Jesus. They have the videos on YouTube. The one guy does he goes to all the auction houses and talks about guns. Then there's the other guy who they have. Is it Forgotten Weapons or is it?
Well, the guy from Forgotten Weapons goes to the auction house and does reviews on all these cool, rare, unique.
Yeah, but
guns.
Those two guys, those two dudes.
Yeah,
they also do stuff where they take guns and they dunk them in it looks like a wheelbarrow full of mud and make everybody on the internet cry.
Okay.
And some of their tests were a shock to a lot of people because surprise, the AR-15 is a closed system and you can dunk it in mud. It generally will run. AK-47 is not a closed system. Guess what? Surprise, shit gets in there. Dude, they finally, I guess they did a Glock 19. I think it got one shot off.
Okay.
Literally, they did. I think they did it multiple times, and it got one round, and the gun was done. And I think in some instances, maybe the first round didn't even fire. I mean, it was dead on arrival. It was. I saw the video. I didn't watch the whole video. I just basically forwarded it to where I saw them taking the gun and dunking it and pull it out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to watch 5 seconds of this. And it was click, and I was like, okay. And the thing is, don't read the comments. Don't ever go in there. But, dude, I guarantee you the ass hurt on that is just going to be 211.
Yeah, probably, because people, want to believe that their Glocks are, impervious to anything, but just look, a Glock is just like any other gun. They can blow up. They can malfunction.
Oh, the Glock 40 can blow up.
They're not impervious to, any gun can. I don't care what platform it is. It can happen. So anyway, yeah, look,
have you heard of the Alaskan Avenger?
Yeah, no, what is it? Some new porn star? Or?
Oh, I haven't actually checked because I've been busy, and you have to. I don't like but it looks like it could be real. The quote Alaskan Avenger. This is May 11th, so this is a month ago. I missed this. What this guy was doing? I guess he's in Alaska. He was using the Anchorage, Alaska public online sex offender registry. And he was going out and hunting, attacking pedophiles with a hammer. And it turns out that he had been diddled as a kid by a pedophile. So he had decided
that he's going to start taking out pedophiles.
And it's, it's like you don't know what, you kind of, you know how this has to go, but part of you, there's a deep, dark corner of your brain that's kind of like, You know.
Look. Okay.
Hold on. Let's see. According to Alfred, hold on. Let's see. Let's see. Using Anchorage's public online sex offender registry to locate up to 3 offenders, Jason Volkovich. That's a Russian last name, and Alaska used to be Russian territory. He's probably a native Alaskan. Allegedly broke into his victims' homes and bashed their heads in with a hammer in June. Wait a minute. It's April, May, June. The dates don't add up on this because this is a May 11th article. I don't know. I may have just read fake fucking bull. I know there's a goddamn news. There's a KTVA. Is that where's KTVA 11? Is that in Anchorage? That sounds like Virginia.
I don't know.
But anyway, he would apparently. Well, there's a news reel of him.
Okay.
35 years in jail. He's facing 35 years. Hold on. One of his victims landed in the sex offender registry 10 years ago after pleading no contest to attempted sexual abuse of a minor. He said, "This is not too dissimilar from the guy who shot up the congressman." He said, quote, "I'm an avenging angel. I'm going to mete out justice for people you hurt," unquote, the victim said.
Okay. I have a couple issues with this. I mean, okay, first off, I don't really feel a whole lot of sympathy for pedophiles that get their brains bashed in with a hammer.
He robbed them too.
Okay, I mean, look, if you're going to bash their brains in with a hammer, you might as well get a little monetary compensation out of it. Sure, why not? But look, here's my problem with deciding to bash in people's heads with a hammer that are on the sex offender registry. This guy pleaded no contest to whatever. The truth is, the sex offender registry is so convoluted in a lot of ways. You don't necessarily know if this person actually diddled a minor or not.
Well, there are people on this. Different states have different rules. There's sex offender, then there's sexual, there's like violent offender, violent predators, and different things. So it looks like he was going through the list. He wasn't starting at like number 1 and working his way down. He was specifically targeting people that were diddling. Not like, I mean, look, I want to start an argument with people on the internet, but like a 17-year-old girl has sex with a 19-year-old guy. Is that qualify to be on the registry? This is a guy who was going after little kids, but it's interesting. He's in jail. He's in court. He's not. Here's this quote: "What I have to say at this time is after being physically and mentally abused by a predator, my life was forever changed," Vukovich said. It comes out wrong when I say it, but that's actually his name, Vukovich.
Okay.
He said he targeted sexual offenders in hopes of supporting children, quote, in pursuit of their dreams, writing that kids should be able to, quote, live without the threat of pedophiles lingering around them. Vukovich pled not guilty to the charge of robbery and assault. He's being held $100,000 bail and scheduled to return to court October 17th, faces 35 years in prison if convicted. That's interesting. Okay. He pleaded not guilty. Like, would the guy who shot the GOP congressman, if he was being arraigned today, would he plead guilty or not guilty?
I would say not guilty.
Just because he's a pussy? I mean, like,
no.
If it was 1933 and you shot Adolf Hitler and they've got you up in the Reichstag and they're charging you, do you go, "I did it"? Or do you go, "No, it wasn't me"? I mean, if you're that self-righteous.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. This lunatic truly thought that the Republicans are the problem in this country and Trump's a traitor, and taking these people out are the right thing to do. So he would plead not guilty because he truly doesn't. I mean, he's dead, but I mean, if you look into his background, he truly felt he was righteous doing what he was doing. So if that's the case, he would definitely plead not guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, is he guilty of the act? Yes, but he's going to claim that he's not guilty because it was a righteous act. I mean,
you don't think it's a crime. maybe throw yourself on the mercy of the court. This is one of those things where it's like I have a kind of a problem with, like, okay, like the girl who released the stuff, Reality Winner, or say the guy who who's the guy? He's in Russia now, the NSA leaker, Snowden. It's like, look, if you feel morally obligated, if it's incumbent upon you so you can sleep at night that you have to do certain things, maybe the world doesn't agree with you. There used to be a time when honor would say you're going to take your punishment too, because you've weighed all that, you've decided in the greater good. It's not wait a minute, don't hurt me. It's the people that it's like the hero that goes out and runs in the gunfire. Well, you can't shoot me, I'm a hero. Well, nah, heroes die all the time, bitch. You know what I mean? I mean, most of them die. But anyway, so it's just, interesting, thought processes as far as like, your moral outlook and your view of yourself and your position in the universe and all that kind of stuff. So here's another thing I thought was interesting, and I saw this, and it's a complete change of subject, but you and I are big milsurp guys. You're the big milsurp guy. I just like to shoot strange guns. A lot of people, we see all this all the time when certain ships like get retired in the Navy. Mm-hmm. Everybody says make it into a museum or bring it here. And anybody that actually has one of these naval ships near them starts to realize that it costs a fuck ton of money to keep these things from sinking. It's nonstop. Are
you talking about the submarine?
You mean for Cincinnati?
No.
No. Well, I don't. There's a bunch of them. Like, for example, there's an aircraft carrier down near Charleston. I think it's aircraft carrier, and they're having all kinds of problems with that thing. And then there's other of these ships, like the ones in New York Harbor. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but New York's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
New York's got a lot of money. There's a lot of federal groups that come into New York and a lot of international groups. New York's got there's money to take care of. There's money to take care of the Missouri in Pearl Harbor or the Midway in New York Harbor. The battleship Texas. Battleship closed after sprouting new leak. Crews are working to repair a major leak and to stop flooding on aboard the historic battleship Texas in Houston. As a result, the site is closed to the public until further notice. Let's see here. This is a quote. The ship is constantly leaking and a system of pumps are in place to push out the water, according to Bill Evans, superintendent of I can't say that. JACINTO, San Jacinto battleground.
San Jacinto, I believe.
Okay,
or something like that. I'm familiar with the battleship.
But a new 6 by 8 inch hole on the blister tank let in a substantial amount of water that the current pump system could not control. The extra water caused the ship to list 6 degrees. Starboard.
Is this an old article?
No, this is 3 days ago.
Wow. Okay, because I know a year or two ago they dry docked. They built like a coffer-dam and dry docked it because it had some holes in it.
This one or another one?
No, this one.
This one. Well, see, here's the thing. I mean, if they really want to keep these things floating, unless you have your own Navy, you're going to have to dry dock these and I mean, you're going to have to build a permanent dry dock and basically make it a static display. Because this thing can't stay for 200 years floating.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people don't realize what's involved in keeping these things. They're horrendously expensive. And it's because it's a big battleship. It was built in the 30s?
Well,
let me see here.
I think so. Either the late 20s or early 30s.
So I saw that, and I thought you'd find that interesting because I
just read an article yesterday about the USS Ling. The USS Ling is a World War II era fast attack sub, and like 40 years ago, it was given to the New Jersey I don't know, military Navy museum. Basically, it was a museum started up by a New Jersey guy who owned a newspaper and a bunch of military veterans, and they cut a deal. But apparently this thing's like in the Hackensack River, and they had to dredge the river like 40 years ago to get this damn thing up there. And
a submarine's pretty small.
Yeah. Well, since then, the family has sold the paper. The old guys that started this are dead. The museum's basically going bust because they have no freaking money. And the land that this museum was on, the family wants to sell. Now, here's the problem. You've got a submarine sitting in the river that's silted over with mud. The river's too shallow to get the submarine out. It's too shallow to get equipment in there to cut the submarine up for scrap, and no one wants it. And they're just like, what the hell are we going to do with this thing?
It's just, I mean, these naval museums are a huge, people, because every time some ship named after some state or some city gets retired, everybody's like, we should make it in a museum. And it's like, yeah, who's going to pay for that shit? You have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, we were going to get a submarine. We ended up just getting like the conning tower of it because that's all they could really get here.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah,
Hey, in 22 long rifle news, Walmart has lifted Walmart's lifted their limitations on how much 22 you can buy.
Good.
They have enough. Apparently they have enough stock that you can go in there and buy bricks and bricks and bricks and bricks. So that's kind of a good sign.
That's a real good sign.
And apparently in Congress, the ATF has there's a bill. I thought this was really interesting. I thought this was pretty smart. There's a bill to end ATF war on sporting arms ammo introduced by Utah representative. Rob Bishop of Utah introduced his own bill scaling back certain powers of the ATF, but instead of dealing with law enforcement jurisdiction, Representative Bishop's bill aims to shield the Second Amendment rights of sportsmen and firearms enthusiasts against arbitrary, politically driven ATF regulations and classifications. Bottom line, the whole argument of his bill is, this idea of like, was it a sporting arm?
Yeah.
So we're going to allow versus that's going to go away. I thought that was really, I mean, if they get that to pass.
Yeah, let's see if it goes anywhere. But if it does go anywhere, that's major gun news right there.
That's somebody. This shout out to Representative Rob Bishop from Utah. I tell you what, any of you listeners in Utah, straight up, you got a smart congressman out there. That's somebody who's either he's smart or he's talking to people that are smart, which makes him smart. And that's that. You don't ever. I never heard of that idea before. What a great idea.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, So, just a couple of things there. I was going to talk about the Russian assassinations in Ukraine where they're sending out reporters, these French reporters, like I'm a French reporter, and they're going out and they're interviewing leaders of the Ukrainian resistance of the occupation until the reporter pulls out a gun and starts shooting people.
Let's get off politics.
Yeah, I know.
Let's stick with some fun stuff. We burned over an hour on politics.
I know, because
let's move.
We had to throw one up today because of the damn shooting.
I understand that, but I don't want to. Okay, we covered the shooting. I don't want to cover any other politics.
Yeah, I know. I just mentioned it, so that's that's unless you got anything else, that's really pretty much all I've really got. I mean, I was going to the Ross rifle is done. It's ready to get checked into the armory. We did a write up on it, and if anyone wants to read about it and see some pictures of it, it's on the John1911.com blog site. I tell you what, that thing turned out so phenomenally.
Yeah, man, that thing is gorgeous. And we'll be doing more with it. You'll be seeing more videos. We'll be doing some shooting with it. So it'll make frequent appearances, It's just a neat rifle. And if anyone's not familiar with the Ross rifle, just go read the article and look at the pictures. It's not a real popular rifle, but man, it's a pretty neat rifle all the way around.
It is a neat rifle. It's old steel and wood, and it's straight pull, and it's an American service rifle, which is weird as hell.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, if all you guys out there that like Lee Enfields, you need to. If you're not familiar with the Ross, you need to read up on it. It's kind of. I mean, look. There's a reason they replaced the Ross with the Lee Enfield. I mean, it wasn't a very successful rifle, and it wasn't the best rifle out there, but it's a unique rifle, and that's, that's the cool thing about it. It's not something you see every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's especially if you're shooting 303 already. I mean, if you're an Enfield guy, I'm kind of surprised. It's kind of, are the Ross rifles hard to come by? Are they rare?
Yeah. I mean, look, rare. It depends on your definition of rare. They're not.
Are they common are they common in Canada?
Well, let me put it to you this way. It's easier to find a Ross rifle right now than it is an FR8. I mean,
Yeah, what the hell happened with all that?
I don't know. I'm looking for an FR8, and I just can't freaking find one anywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, because, we like 308 caliber guns. If a gun comes in 9mm or 308 or 45, we're likely to buy it, or 223, because we support the caliber. So I looked for some a while ago, but the thing is, those guns were so cheap, but once they dry up, they're going to be stupid money. It's like all this stuff. It's going up and up and up.
Yeah.
So, well, hell, you can't get too deep on FRA because you still got to get the IDF Mauser running or fixed or go over.
Well, so I need to give it a go over. I haven't actually seen it in person yet, and from the limited pictures that I've seen of it that you sent over to me, I don't think it's going to need much, man. That thing looks good. I'll go over it. We may have to play with it. I want to look at the wood. Because the really neat thing, certain IDF Mausers have a lot of history. That thing could have started out as a GEW 98 and then got converted.
It's got an FN receiver. It doesn't have a German receiver. It's not like a World War I gun. It doesn't have a bunch of German markings on it. I'm certainly not the person to make that assessment, but to me it doesn't. But maybe there's one on there that I'm missing. Maybe it was scrubbed. I mean, you could end up taking the thing apart and discover freaking Hitler's serial number, Hitler's personal social security number on there for all I fucking know. And I realize Hitler's social security number is an impossible thing. I'm just making a joke. So, we'll get that running and, get that going. And so do you want to hear, we're going to wrap this one up because we wanted to, more frequent podcasts and not want to go too long, but you want to hear an example of a guy who has a worse life than you.
Okay, sure. And I'm always looking to find someone that's got it worse than me.
Yeah, so this way, worse life than you. That way we can just be like, yeah, okay, we're not doing so bad. Kansas man who robbed bank to escape wife gets home confinement sentence.
Oh, dude, really? Whoa, how do you rob a bank and then get house arrest. I mean,
like that one guy, haven't you ever seen Point Break? If you rob banks, like all these FBI guys are supposed to be chasing you and your balls are supposed to be like this big, and you're surfing on your, never-ending vacation or never-ending summer. A Kansas man who robbed a bank last September told police that he was hoping to get caught so he would get prison time to escape his wife. Was sentenced Tuesday to 6 months of home confinement after pleading guilty.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Lawrence John Ripple.
Okay, first off, what kind of a shrew is he living with where he's willing to go to prison on a felony bank robbery charge to get away from her?
Yeah, I mean, if that isn't like maybe the justice system being creative and being like, oh, so you want to go to prison, huh? Mrs. Ripple is going to be your prison guard.
Wow.
Yeah, Buddha says we make our own prisons, and yours is at home with your wife.
Wow, dude, that is.
So,
wow.
So that was one that kind of ended on a positive note, but we've been kind of bitching and moaning for like an hour about goddamn leftist communist crazies. So if you think life is bad and things suck, and if you hate Donald Trump, or if you love Donald Trump, if you think the Democrats are getting away with murder, or you think the Republicans are getting away with murder, just remember this. At least you're not Lawrence John Ripple.
Man, Jesus. That is, dude, that's actually creative justice.
Yeah. So, yeah. Maybe,
Wow.
that was pretty rough. So, all right. Well, this is going to wrap up episode 65 of the John1911 Podcast. If you like this podcast, think about leaving us some feedback on iTunes, even if it's 1 star. We know there's a ton of you listening to this stuff, but no one's really leaving feedback, which is just kind of odd. So, I'll read all the feedback. Whatever you guys got to say, we'll listen to it. And special promotional consideration to Mitch at A&M Promotions to make us sound good for, he's our audio engineer. And just remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
See you later.